Hello everyone, this is Grandmaster Shahin from Iran. Welcome to my channel, and today we are gonna talk about 5 common mistakes that players under 1800 rating may do during the game without even noticing. If you want to improve on that areas and do not make those mistakes, be with me. If you want to increase your rating and go up, level up to more than 2000 rating, the subjects that we are discussing today will be useful for you. So the first common mistakes is that we all know about developing pieces at the beginning of the game. But the thing that is even more important than that is developing towards some goals, developing with reason, not just for some random idea. So, for example, let's go to the board and think about this variation: e4, e6, d4, d5, knight c3, bishop b4, which is called Winawer variation, by the way, e takes, e takes. Now, you may understand that in this position, you need to develop your knight on g1 and bring it to the center of the board. But just developing this knight is not an answer. You need to understand and you need to think which square should be the best for this knight. So many players under 800 rating, 1800 I mean, they may just play knight f3. They may think that, okay, I will develop my knight and then I will develop the bishop and go castle short, everything is fine. But actually here, knight ge2 may be more useful. Why? Because with playing knight ge2, you are not only developing the knight, you are preparing a3, and if he takes your knight, you want to take back with your knight. It's not possible to destroy your pawn structure, everything is fine. And then you can try to develop your bishop and go castle short. So always try to developing pieces, not just for some random reason, but with a good and great reason. So this is the mistake number 1. Another examples about this mistake is sometimes we are just trying to, for example, move our bishop on the board, but not thinking which square is better. Let's give you another example from the beginning. Let's say d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3, d5, knight c3, bishop b4, and you may want to bring your c1 bishop to the board. So just bringing it out to d2 or e3 is not gonna work. Why? Because it's not active. Because you don't have any important goal. Developing from f4 or g5 is much better for a simple reason, because it's more active, because this piece actually does something on the board. So always try to develop the pieces as active as you can and on the best square that they can go. Okay, this is the mistake number 1. Mistake number 2 is ignoring pawn structure. So what is that? Many players may think that pawn structures, double pawns, weak pawns, isolated pawn, are not important, and they're just thinking about tactics, they're thinking about mating the opponent. But pawn structures and having a good pawn structures is also very important, especially when you want to go to the endgame. For example, let's say d4, knight f6, this time we are black, c4, e6, knight c3, bishop b4, knight f3, c5, d takes c5, knight a6. Now, if you play a3 here, it's a bad move with white. Why? Because after bishop takes c3, b takes c3, and knight takes c5, you will have worse pawn structure. Your pawns on c3 and c4 are double, isolated double pawns, which is one of the worst kinds. And especially if you go to the endgame, if you change the pieces, in the endgame you will have many problems. So always attention, always try to have a good pawn structure, always try to push your pawns forward, gain space with your pawns, but not isolated. Try to have connected pawn, and forward, pushing them forward all together is a way. Try to not have a weak pawn. Examples of weak pawns are, one of them is like isolated pawn. In some cases, not always, but in some cases, like for example, let me show you another example here. You may have a bad isolated pawn, which is also not working. Now, for example, I continue some moves. b6, knight takes d5 is a bad move. Takes, taking d5. Now you would have an isolated pawn, which is still a weak pawn. So try to think by just not losing a pawn, by just thinking about defending the pawn, your position will not be good. You should always care about having a good pawn structure too. It's also important. So let's move on to mistake number 3. Attacking while your king is unsafe. So the safety of the king is the basic elements in chess. The first priority that you should have in your game is getting your king to the safety. So for doing that, I always recommend you to go castle. This may look simple, but it's not that simple, and many players, many of my own students make this mistake. They think that, okay, right now he cannot mate me, so it's not necessary to go castle. But after few moves, they may realize that, okay, now suddenly our king is on threat and we cannot move to the good game. So always try to go castle. There is a sentence that I usually tell all of my students. Castle first, think later. Castle first, think later. So after you develop some of your pieces and gain the center, even if your king is not on threat, go castle. This is very important. So in this position, for example, if you are black, after all of these ideas, if you don't know what to do, the best thing is go castle, then try to bring other pieces to the board, then try to make problem, then try to attack. Not going castle and start attacking without noticing your own king is not good, guys. This was mistake number 3. About mistake number 4, trading pieces without a reason. This is also a very common mistake that I have seen. Maybe the most common one between these 5 ones. So, for example, in this position, let's say you are white. Taking the knight with your bishop is not good. Why? Because there is no logical reason behind this idea. You need a reason to change the pieces. Without reason, you will not change the pieces. And in this position, changing your bishop with the knight doesn't have any reason. Because your bishop is activated, because your bishop have a good pin on his knight and his queen. So you don't need to take it. You need to develop the pieces, playing e3 or g3, bringing your bishop, going castle. So always, even if your endgame is good, do not change pieces without reason. Always think there should be a reason. What are the examples? What are the reasons that we can do? Okay, one of the reasons is our pieces is less active, it's passive ones compared to his pieces, to her pieces. One other reason is that after you change one of the pieces, you have a tactical idea. You can attack on his king, and etc. Any other good reason can work. You may destroy his pawn structure, but without reason, do not change pieces. And mistake number 5, the last one, not calculating force moves first. Many players do not calculate force moves. They just think like have a long-term plan will work. But calculation is the mother of all other principles. Calculation is the most important element we have in chess. So always try to calculate forcing moves. Checks, captures, and threats. These three are all our priorities. We should think about these three first. Then after that, we can think about and calculate about any other examples and any other candidate moves you have in mind. So for example, let's say that you play the nice idea here. d4, knight f6, you want to play bishop g5, your opponent played knight e4, you played bishop f4, your opponent played c5, and you play f3. Now, this is not a wrong move, but just for an example, you should not just calculate his moves with the knight, but you should think about all his checks, all his captures, all his threats. Now, for example, in this position, one of the main lines is queen a5 check, actually, which is not bad. He's not forced to move the knight. Always consider, special from your opponent's side, all checks, all captures, then all threats, then like defending and any other idea. This is very important, guys. I don't want to, just make this video any longer, but all these 5 mistakes are important. We will work on each one of them in the future, I hope. And just to summarize, if you want to increase your rating, if you want to go after 2000 official FIDE ELO, you need to work and you need to recognize which one of these 5 common ones are your problem and solve it. It's not that hard. And I hope that in the following videos and concepts, you will be with me and learn how to not doing this mistake, how to avoid this mistake and improve your game. Have a nice day, guys. I'd like you to subscribe to my channel and like this video so I will have more and more energy for our next ones. Bye bye.